All right, how we doing out there? My name is Bombi. Welcome to another episode of Trillitics. On hand is my usual co-host, Charles Big Angry Adams. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's been a long break.
Yeah. Been taking a little pause in the Trillitics broadcast. It just gets real busy up here in the place where we record, and so we don't always have the time available that we would normally have slated out for these things. Having to move a lot of things around to get back in. Luckily, we're back in again. And because I don't really feel comfortable doing this anywhere else, I really enjoy doing these podcasts here at the Media Block. So it's just a matter of working around their schedule. And today we were able to get back in and record another Trillitics podcast. I think it's a great week to do a podcast. A lot of great things happening government-wise in the country. I guess we should start with the... Well, we'll start from one summit and move to the other. I guess we can start with the G7 summit. Will it be the G6 summit next year?
Oh, I think that's a whole lot of hullabaloo. I do think he will continue to ostracize our nation from certain discussions, but we're such an important part of the discussion, for trade especially. We are the discussion, that it'll never be the G6. And if it was, that would be very short-sighted on the other six. I really don't think Trump's going to run again in 2000. You know, that's the whole beauty of a democracy, is people aren't always going to agree with who is elected. You know, it's an election.
You don't think he's going to run for president again?
I don't think he'll run again.
You're insane, Charles. Why?
Okay.
What's it? What? Give me one reason why Donald Trump would not run for
I think he'll come
again.
up with a reason. I don't think it will be... I don't feel like doing it. I think there'll be a health reason or some other, a deep story.
He's the healthiest president we've had ever.
Well, his former doctor has already admitted that was a lie drafted solely by him. But I just don't see, I think the fun is worn off. I think for Trump now, the fun will be being the former president without a loss, without an L. I think that if the polling is bad, once you become president, you're president for life, right? And I think he's going to see it. I honestly believe we will not see Trump throw his hat in the ring in the next one. I don't know. I'm not saying whether or not I think he would win or lose if he did. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I absolutely believe it's going to happen. I see no reason why Trump wouldn't want to keep this level of authority that he has.
You see, I don't know if it's necessarily. I don't know if his ego is driven by the authority as more it's driven by the challenge and the victory and the fear. I think it is a fear of loss.
First off, I don't think he ever wanted to be president.
Right.
I think he
agree.
Just wanted to win the contest of being president.
Right.
And I think there are certain things about the presidency that he's not crazy about. You know what I'm saying? Lack of privacy. Lack of mobility, kind of being stuck in one place all the time. But I do think that he gets a kick out of setting policy. I think he also gets a kick out of reversing policy. And I think he is a true authoritarian, and that he likes having this level of power. It's not the same level of power that he had as a millionaire or billionaire, whatever you choose to believe, real estate baron, or over glorified slumlord, however you want to call it. But I think that Donald Trump truly gets a kick out of being president. I think he likes all the ancillary stuff that comes with it. I think he likes being able to tell people what to do and have millions of people agree with him. Like, I don't think it's just the office. I think it's the adoration that he gets from his core demographic.
Well, you say that, but that wasn't until he became a viable candidate. That wasn't his core demographic, right? Like, he kicked it with famous hip hop stars, and he kicked it with the elite of New York, and we developed this new.
But that's not what gets you elected president,
right? Now, I understand, but I think he would rather be hanging out with the intelligentsia and the famous people in New York than he would be ostracized from them. I think that he's become president, and I think it's rear viewed for him. And what we'd like, it's fun to call him a slumlord. The reality is, like, the lawsuit against his dad and his company for discrimination was mainly targeted at leasing agents who weren't leasing to an African American. It wasn't something Trump as an individual was doing. And there's things linking his dad to that policy, but Trump actually did a lot of good things, in terms of country clubs in South Florida that were traditionally, he bought clubs that wouldn't allow Jewish or black members, and he opened the doors to Jewish and black members. He's bought a lot of real estate and made it nicer, but
that doesn't make him automatically a great president.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't think he's a
qualify
great
him
president. I've never been a Trump guy. What I'm saying is that we demonized Trump, and we started, no one demonized him during the primary because, when no one, I mean the media, because Hillary wanted him to win because she thought, and the left does control the media, she thought that he was the easiest conquest as an opponent, right? Once he won the primary, then all of a sudden he's being demonized by the media, and everyone else picks up on. I think he's a schmuck.
I think it started with him coming down the elevator. I think people were not crazy about him once he started showing his angle and the kind of crowd that he was going to cater to in order to get this presidency. Which, to be honest, would not have been much further than Mitt Romney and different people. I think people were catering to.
Well, Mitt won in in Massachusetts. He was a Republican governor elected in Massachusetts.
Well,
basically makes him a Democrat everywhere else.
Well, basically going after purely the white vote.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
In that sense. Because that was definitely Mitt's strategy. He was just a little bit more polite about it. Right?
Well, Mitt did
had a little bit
invent
more social grace.
Well, Mitt invented Obamacare. Romney Care was the predecessor to Obamacare. He had a whole lot of socialist ideas, and that's why a lot of people call him a rhino, because he really is a Republican in name only. He is a moderate centrist, often liberal on certain things, as someone from the great state of Utah that subscribes to the insanity that is.
Well, people could assume, people could throw Republican on you because you're fairly moderate conservative.
Well,
leaning a lot more towards libertarian.
But I get that a lot. I get people calling me a Republican. I get people calling me a liberal. My whole thing is I just agree with policies I agree with and disagree with policies I disagree with. And I think the two-party system is really to blame for every problem in America. I think we should have individuals. People talk about how California gets things wrong, but California just had a big primary, right? I think one thing that California gets really, really right is its primary system being an open primary, so you could end up with two Republicans or two Democrats. It pushes people to the center. Whereas our party-driven primary or caucus system in most of the rest of the country creates a situation where the most extreme Democrat and the most extreme Republican win and then square off. So you have basically an election between two ideological poles, whereas in California, you typically have two more center-leaning. We saw Villarosa, or I can't pronounce the Los Angeles mayor. Villagrosa?
Is it Villagar? I don't want to butcher it.
$35 million he spent to come in third. Cox, the Republican candidate that came in second, a center Republican candidate, spent $6.6 million and beat him. Now, I do think our great former mayor of San Francisco is going to win the election, but it just shows you that when you have someone like the mayor of L.A. who is very socialist, very, very far out there to the point where he's off-putting to some, Democrats who aren't in favor of more taxation and more entitlements,
right,
that you don't end up making the cut. Whereas I think if you just had a closed primary system like you have in Texas, he would have won, and he'd be facing an extreme Republican. And then how does that help anything?
Yeah, we don't want polar, guys on the polar opposite of these discussions to be the only candidates that we're taking into consideration. Well, but that just goes to show that speaks more to, I think, people. I think it's more about people not being really, really honest about who they are and what they like and what they go for. Because as we see, the majority of people will say one thing: "Oh, I don't like that. I'm not with that. That's not fair to other people." But then when it comes time to vote, those same views don't show up in the ballots. People will say, like, I honestly believe that, and I could be far off on this, but I think a lot more white people claimed to vote for Obama than actually did vote for Obama because they didn't want to seem like the racist person in the conversation.
See,
I, I
I would disagree in that Obama doesn't win. In presidential politics, you can knock off all the states. You can knock off
oh, and I'm not
Texas.
saying that white people didn't vote
Okay.
for him. I'm just saying.
But it's much more narrow than the discussions that most people have. So when in presidential politics, California doesn't matter, New York doesn't matter, Texas doesn't matter,
No, it's
Kansas
the
doesn't
swing
matter.
states.
It is Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin, and it's that narrow, and that's what people hate to hear. It's that narrow demographic of people that voted for Obama in 08 and 12, or the prior two, and then switched and either stayed home or voted for Trump. And the question is why? Why did these people move from being participatory, and it's mostly white Americans, to being non-participatory?
Well, I think that goes to the fact that Obama and Hillary are two different types of people within the same party. I don't think that people saw what they saw in Obama, which was something new and a possibility for someone that could possibly come in and shake up the way politics looks initially, and then eventually how politics feels outside, and was a very new person, very new in the arena, as opposed to Hillary Clinton. And the Clinton name does not have a great history in politics anymore. I mean, Bill was president, but it was a tainted presidency. I think Hillary has a lot of bad things attached to her as well. And I don't want to say that people that normally would have voted for Obama didn't vote for Hillary and went ahead and voted for Trump. I think there was people that they wanted to vote for, and when those people didn't show up, they didn't go back to the polls. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was not really something that was going to shake up things in the way that they wanted things to be shaken up. I think Trump coming in and shaking up the political scheme was very off-putting to a lot of people. And it was just a matter of trying to decide what was the lesser of two evils. I don't think either one of them were great candidates for president, to be honest.
Trump energized people. And see, that's a lot. Trump.
But in what way, though? I mean,
but see, that's the thing. In politics, it doesn't matter how you do it. It matters if you win. I mean, it's a blood sport, right? And see, that was what I find the key difference between Obama and Hillary is that Obama, much like President Reagan, whereas President Reagan talked about the city on the hill, and the hope of America and a better America. Obama talked about the hope of America and a better America. They were having two completely different discussions, but they were hopeful discussions that focused thematically on the greatness of America. Now, Michelle went against the grain on that with her, I've never been proud of America before he was elected, and then some comments. But for the most part, Obama, throughout his entire presidency, stayed hopeful about America. I think Obama could have done a lot more, especially on the war on drugs, but he stayed hopeful in his rhetoric. Reagan talked about hope to Trump. And I know he usurped that language from some very evil past, but his Make America Great Again is still being hopeful, whereas Hillary lectured. Hillary called white men deplorables. And even white guys that weren't going to vote for Trump are like, well, you know what? Fuck you. If you're going to fucking go. Hillary lectured people on how they need to give more and have less, right? And that's not the mantra of American capitalism. It is work hard and you can have all the shit you want to have. And Obama talked about it. And I mean, he didn't really, his record on the economy was not great, right? And we do need a solution with health care. But the reality was that Obamacare created much greater health costs for most working Americans.
Well, that's
for low-income, non-participatory
Well, they didn't
Americans.
get to, not to cut you off, but they didn't get to implement the real version of Obamacare that they wanted to. They had to kind of compromise, as a lot of things in politics are. You have to give up this to get that.
But his name was on it. And the result was when people are paying triple their insurance premium, when regular working-class middle Americans are paying triple their insurance premium, they got to have someone to blame. And then people don't blame the insurance companies. They blamed Obama. But he still had rhetoric of hope. And Hillary just lectured people and talked down to people. And nobody wants to hear that shit, especially grown-ass people that wake up every day. I do also think that the dialogue of identity politics kind of changed during the Obama administration. And when you have class privilege, you have race privilege, but when you tell people they grew up poor and have been poor all their life, that they benefit from some sort of privilege that they've never felt, it alienates people, encourages people to vote against their economic interest. And the whole thing is, we just need to have a better discussion. I'm not saying it's completely different, but we have to have a better discussion with people especially people that have never known privilege about privilege, because you don't necessarily think not getting stopped by the police all the time is a privilege when you're still on welfare yourself. I mean, we do have 9 million African Americans in poverty, a greater number per capita, but we have more than double that. We got 20 million white Americans in poverty who are also generational poverty. And when it's all just a lecture, which is what Hillary did to white America, you put them off. And they're like, fuck you. I'm voting for Trump, even though I think he's a fucking idiot.
Which makes no sense.
No, but she was a shitty candidate. Like Bernie, I disagree with socialism. You know, I own a couple of small businesses. I work 12-hour days. I think I pay enough in taxes. I disagree with the concept. I think people should work. I think we need a system that makes sure that people aren't starving, especially children and the disabled. But we have too many people pretending to have a disability in America nowadays. We have too many malingerers. But we need more participators. And I think socialism breeds non-participation. But he was a candidate that would have won, though. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about. I'd be bitching about my tax burden under Sanders.
So you think Bernie would have beaten Trump?
Oh, most certainly.
I don't believe that.
But I think the Democratic Party, led by Wasserman Schultz, manipulated the primary away from Bernie. And while I disagree fundamentally with many of Bernie's positions,
thinking they did.
Yeah.
I mean, they absolutely did that. They politic that whole situation.
Right, but he had the zeitgeist, right? Just like Trump had the zeitgeist.
But here's the thing: like I keep telling people, Bernie had a lot of energy around him. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of young energy around him. Very impressionable people. Those people weren't all gonna vote though. That's the difference. That's the key difference because. When I would go to a Trump rally and see those people at the Trump rally, it was evident that no one in that room needed to be convinced. No one was in that room to be sold. They were in that room because they were already on board.
But at the extremes. They're not the voters you're worried about. It's not voters showing up at rallies. It's those voters that didn't participate at all in the swing states that made that decision on the day of or during early voting. And those are the ones that cost Hillary the election. And I think that cost her the election. She just lectured people.
I don't think that anybody in those rooms were completely sold. I was in the Hillary rooms. They were trying to sell.
What did you think when she talked to you? I know y'all had a meeting here in Houston. Like, were you inspired by her? I know you've met Obama, right?
No.
You never met Obama?
No.
I know you went to the White House one time, but you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't meet him. No.
Okay.
It was more of a friend that worked for Secret Service.
Okay. It's my understanding that it's very inspirational when you meet him, right?
Well, yeah, but that's a different type of inspiration.
No. I mean, it's my understanding because obviously the Harvard Law School community is not huge. He was there about a decade before me. People talk about him in terms of, and this was obviously before he was president when I was at the law school. Man, he's just one of those guys when you meet him, you fucking like. People say the same thing about George W. Bush, not Herbert Walker, but W.
Yeah.
You meet that motherfucker, you fucking like him. And people said the same thing about Obama. He was a guy that you just meet him and you liked him. No one says that shit about Hillary, right? And I mean, it's still a popularity contest. It's still homecoming queen and homecoming king.
And that's why, and it's a lot more about who entertains you too, right? It's about who really grabs your attention. Obama grabbed people's attention in one way, and I think Trump grabbed them in another way. I think a lot of Trump's thing was, oh my God, did he really just say that? Because I've kind of felt like that, but I've never heard anybody actually say it. Yeah. And that played into a lot of people's hands, and I just don't think that anybody was really thinking of like Hillary, like, oh yeah, I felt like that. I don't think people felt like that. I think that Bernie, while he did, have a lot of energy behind it, I think it was about a lot of younger people. And the younger people were really just more about being in the room for the vibe. Like the college kids that would go to the Bernie thing just kind of wanted to be there because it was the it thing that was going on campus. I don't think all of them were going to actually turn out and vote for Bernie.
No. I mean, the youth vote is usually very lackluster, but it's more about momentum and a zeitgeist and a moment. And, he was promising people free stuff, and that works. That works with the left. That's why entitlements, clearly there are entitlements we need, but we have this ever burgeoning entitlement program that I think it was Finland. It might have been Norway, but I think Finland started a regional universal income program, which is where you eliminate the bureaucracy of welfare and you cut everyone a check, right? Mm-hmm. They stopped it because they realized that so many people just said, okay, that's cool, that's enough, and then they stopped participating. And I do think that we're having that issue in America where people are finding all kind of ways. Like we had this horrible had all these suicides lately. Okay. Well, and we all want to talk about Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain's suicide. We don't talk about the 22 veterans a day who are killing themselves. But what we also don't talk about is how the resources that should be directed at these veterans who are suffering from horrible PTSD is being usurped by veterans who, evil lawyers, I'm a lawyer, who are teaching people the narrative, the dialogue, the discourse, the script you have to get benefits. So you have a lot of people that never saw a war zone who are saying the words they need to say to get a PTSD check out of the military. Just like you have a number of people, you have millions of people on disability that don't need to be on disability in America because a lawyer has taught them a script. And then those are taking the benefits from the people that truly need it. And we need to get away from a culture of the dull, but we also don't need to have an insensitive country that lets people starve. And it's the great dichotomy. But I do think kids and a lot of people that are without are sold on Bernie's, hey, I'm going to give you stuff, I don't know.
No, I think it's just a lot of murky territory. I don't think there's ever going to be a presidential election that anyone feels like, well, I think it could have went either way. Either way, it's all the same.
Yeah.
In a good way, where we have, a conservative candidate that liberals aren't exactly, completely off-put about, and that you have a Democratic candidate that conservatives have to agree with on certain things.
Right.
But that doesn't work, and the loudest voice in the room wins.
Well, and I think it's the problem with the two-party system. Is it go back to that? I think that the problem with the two-party system is it's the loudest, most extreme voice in the room wins. The loudest, most extreme voice doesn't always win. We've been on a long break. Roseanne Barr didn't win when she used her loud, extreme voice to call Valerie Jarrett a mix between, what was it, the Muslim Brotherhood and a Planet of the Apes character?
Yeah.
How is that not racist? Like, I got an argument with some of my more conservative followers who were trying to qualify and justify it.
No, that's a racist remark. When you compare a black person to an ape, it's inherently racist.
Right, and the argument that, she doesn't look African American. I don't give a fuck if she looks white or African. Everyone knows she's African American, and it's disgusting bigotry. Do you think Roseanne recovers?
Eventually. America's a very forgiving country. We've forgotten about Michael Richards. We forget about a lot of things. We tend to give people second chances in America.
We never talk. I don't think we ever talked about that even privately. When Michael Richards, obviously at the Comedy Store, a place that I frequent when I'm in West Hollywood, what do you think happened there? I mean, do you think he was just trying to be extreme, or you think that guy's a bigot? It's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's not like because it didn't happen in the course of a routine.
What happened in the course of an ugly dialogue
back and forth with two people. That was more of a personal thing to try to, win an argument and try to out ugly the other person.
Yeah, but how do you go there, right?
Well, I mean, obviously you may not have a frame of reference for it. You're a different type of white person, I think. I don't think that's...
Well, I think all white people are different type of white people. I think when we speak holistically about any race, it'd be like me saying, and I've heard that from other people, it's like me saying, oh, you're a different type of black person. It still insults the rest of the race, right? I mean, we're all individuals.
I'll give you that. That's fair.
I mean, I think that...
But I think we all agree on things a lot more than we like to admit. Yeah. And I think it's the indifference that tears down America. It's like if you're within a group of people and you don't agree with the group of people, but you don't do anything to denounce that particular group of people, then you're just as culpable as they are.
It has been so long since we break. So, and I'm trying to. It wasn't Childish Gambino. It wasn't Donald Glover. What rapper was it that got the white girl on stage, and then she said
that was Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick. Yeah. Okay.
And she used the N-word.
N-word, but part of the song, right? And what is your thoughts on that usage of the N-word by a white person repeating lyrics?
I'm actually, just to be very honest, I don't always feel 100% comfortable when I'm using the N-word on stage and I have a large influx of white people in the crowd.
Okay.
It's uncomfortable for me because I know that they can't sing along.
Right.
But it is the words to the song. So, for me, I feel a certain way when I do hear people or see people using it, even if they're just like the girl tried to say, I'm just singing the song that you wrote. Well, there's a lot of songs that people sing that you shouldn't sing and things that you shouldn't agree with.
So here's my...
And this is touchy. This is a touchy subject.
So, it's touchy even for me to say my black friend J.K. But the first time I went on Gumball, okay, I brought a friend of mine who had never been out of Texas, okay, African American fella, and of course we only did the second half, but we did a full 3,000 because we drove from here to Reno where y'all landed and went from there, and we stopped in like Scottsdale and Vegas and went to a fight and stuff. We did a bunch of fun shit.
Technically, you had about 3,000 miles.
Right. So we were doing, but we were listening to rap music in our very beautiful car. And what we were banging over and over again was Rick Ross, "The Devil Is a Lie." Okay. That was like our song of the moment. And of course, a lot of UGK. Okay. And there's a lot of Rick Ross and UGK, lots of N-word, right? I think we were listening to, I can't remember which record.
I have the world record for most N-words in one song.
But I wasn't saying it. I would just skip it. But, if someone's singing along, I don't think that makes them a racist, right? I mean, they're just not culturally appropriate.
If they're singing along and saying the N-word.
Right, but it's a part of the song.
Well, no, I think it's still a touchy situation.
I agree, but do you think that makes that person a racist?
Well, I think using terminology that is inappropriate, right? I think that's problematic. I can't just openly say you're a racist, but you understand that it's a problematic situation for you to use that word. Okay, every white person should know that it's problematic to use that word, whether or not you mean it in a certain way. It's problematic. There's very little argument that you can have on your side for the black person hearing you saying that to not be offended.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say it. And I think the soft A, hard ER, that's a bullshit argument, right?
Yeah, there's
Hispanic people. Me and two DJs, one Hispanic and one African American, were having a conversation, in fact, at a TV station. This is about a month ago. And the Hispanic fella said the word, right? Mm-hmm. And later when he walked off, I was like, and it was Tigray. Okay, it was the one I was talking to. I'm not going to say the one that said it. I was like, Tigray, does that fucking piss you off? I mean, what the fuck, man? Because what the fuck? And then I asked the Hispanic guy later, and he's like, man, I'm brown too. I can say that shit. And what are your feelings on that?
Well, it's not just a simple fact of I'm brown too. I think it's a lot of times black people know that other people of color have been objectified by people in the same way that they have, and they're almost like a brother in the struggle.
So you're okay with it?
I mean, I've had instances where there's certain people that say it a lot, and I felt a certain way about it. There's an argument now about people of, say, Indian descent or people of Muslim descent have a right to use the word too.
Okay.
But again, I think it all speaks to people being objectified and people being boxed in a certain place and feeling a certain way. And I think that, when you do see that, most of the people that if you see a Latino person using that word, they probably grew up in the same projects as a black person. So,
yeah, but I grew up on the east side of Austin. I was like the one white dude at the park. But you're still white, Charles. You're still white. And there's going to be different interactions with you and white people, and with a black person and white people, and with a Latina person and white people. And again, there's going to be certain people that aren't going to, like in LA, that argument doesn't work. Okay.
Like based on the gang demographic and the way that, Latinos outnumber the black people as far as gangs in LA.
Right.
So there is a definite separation of the races as far as that city and that area works. So you have Latinas that will use the N-word in a derogatory sentence against black people. Like, you're never going to hear Cypress Hill or somebody say the N-word because they're from LA. You're never going to hear them use that word. But you will hear, like, an East Coast person, like a Fat Joe or somebody, use that word because it's a different cultural experience that Latinas tend to share in New York that they don't share in California because of the gang lines.
Well, let's say a Dominican, whereas obviously there's a whole lot of slavery on the sugar plantations,
of course,
and interrelations with the white slave owners and the native population there. Do you think that they have more of a right because they share more of a common heritage? Or?
I don't even think it's more of the heritage. I think it's more of it's not the pluses of it, right? It's the negatives.
Okay.
Right. It's the like I said, it's a way that they share the same struggle in trying to achieve something in this country and not being allowed to because the powers that be and a certain collective group of people look at them as less than.
Okay. when you take that position, though, okay, so the white people of West Virginia or East Kentucky, people that have suffered from intergenerational poverty for 300 years,
They're still white.
I understand, but they have three teeth, and people
They're still white. Even amongst them, they would tell you that the poorest white man is still better than a nigger.
But I don't think that holds with most of America.
And you got to keep in mind
there's plenty of American.
Appalachia and the inner city are two totally different places culturally. So even if they're both poor, it doesn't mean they're both necessarily ostracized in the same way.
Okay.
Right? Now a rich person may look at them a little different, but there may be, from my experience, a little more leniency towards, like, I just saw a video, and we see it all the time, of how police interact with white people that they think might be a criminal or even know is a criminal.
Okay.
And the way that the interaction happens with a black person that's suspected of being a criminal.
Did you see the 10-year-old kid video?
Which one?
Fucking kid got handcuffed.
Kid got handcuffed.
Man, what the fuck? But see, a lot of it, I mean, I do think that the solutions are cameras. I mean, it was like when I was on the Isaiah Factor last week, they had me talk about the Mesa, Arizona incident. Mesa, Arizona Police Department, and most of the listeners, I'm a former police officer, has a horrible history. You know, they shot, I think his last name was Glover, Daniel Glover, I believe. White man from Dallas who was there. He held a pellet gun up, or someone had seen a pellet gun in his window. They came, and one of their officers shot him as he was crawling on his hands and knees, falling and killed him. Officer got a not guilty. Then you had 2 years later, not after the conviction, but after the incident, you had a African American who just happened to be with a friend who went over to his girlfriend's apartment and was banging on the door because he was upset with her. This guy wasn't involved at all. They beat the shit out of him, not realizing there was video camera in the apartment hallway.
And just being fair, the main guy punching him was black.
Yeah, oh no, it's about a police culture. It's not a.
Yeah.
But so Isaiah wanted me to come on and talk about it, and Jolanda John, a local former city councilwoman who had some scandals, and now is the vice president of the trustees of HISD. She was tweeting that wondering how I was going to justify this police conduct right before it, and I of course got on there and this is insane. Cameras protect good people from bad cops and good cops from bad people, and clearly here you had bad actors on the police department. Right. Punching a guy in the face because you could clear that he interpreted sitting down as sitting against the wall, right? Who thinks they mean sit Indian style like a 6-year-old, right?
Right.
But there was an assumption that I would, because of my being a former police officer, that I would run to the defense of all policemen, and we shouldn't make assumptions about anyone of any race, right? I mean, at some point we have to realize that white people are only white because of the lack of sunlight in Northern Europe, and that you needed to be able to suck the nutrients from the sun quicker. And black people are only black because they were in the heart of Africa where there was constant sunlight and they needed tougher skin.
And then there's physiological things like melanin. The
melanin developed through basically centuries of evolution where our bodies needed more sun, and African bodies, that we all came from the same group. Like we were all the same at some point, right?
Right.
And then we all spread across the earth, and there were different things that led in. I mean, I personally don't, and I think most people would agree. Like, I disagree with the concept that there was a white race and a black race and an Asian race that all stemmed from different evolutionary trees. I mean, pretty much everyone agrees we all came from Africa, and then we spread across the earth. And
I think everybody agrees. I think a large percentage of it.
Okay.
But there's people that don't believe the Holocaust happened. So there's going to be people that argue everything. And I think it really stems from. I think this argument about race really stems from the frame of reference that people have. I mean, if you've only ever interacted with for example, there are a lot of people in the inner cities of America that the only time they've ever interacted with white people, the white people were in a state of authority.
Okay.
So based on all their interactions with white people in authority, they have no choice but to draw the assumption that this is how all white people feel. And the reason they do that is because they don't see enough white people protesting when some of these things happen to them. And again, like I said, it doesn't mean all white people are like that, but all the white people they know, all the white people they've ever seen,
right,
and all the white people they've ever interacted with. And the same thing can happen for white people who could be in a certain place And, the only type of criminals they've ever seen were black people. The only type of drug users they've ever, or drug dealers or whatever they've ever interacted with or seen or been told about, you know what I'm saying? Like, television is a very, very tricky situation. And I think a lot of things have been muted on both sides. And I think there are a lot of people in America who don't get to see both sides of everything. And so they have to draw a conclusion that a lot of these things are one-sided.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
And it's not a perfect argument by any means. And I think, Obama was, in a lot of people's minds, white and black, the hope that maybe we were moving towards a different kind of America. Because, how, can you get to a point of a black president without having white people agreeing with it? It just doesn't happen.
Well, no, it wouldn't happen. But do you think then, but white people elected Obama. Like, all the black people in the world could vote for one candidate, but if you don't have a whole lot more white support, you're not ever getting elected to anything on the national level, right?
Yeah, that's
it was white people that elected Obama.
Because they're minority, so they simply aren't more white people.
Well, yeah, it's like
13%
of the population is African American. Okay, so then you have white people elect Obama, but then you are the whole
some
racial,
white people, not
right.
white people as a whole, because a lot of white people were offended by the entire fact.
But do you think? Okay, so if someone votes for a conservative because they believe in conservative principles, does that make them a racist for not voting for Obama? Or let's say if there was a black presidential candidate that let's say, what's the Johns Hopkins doctor who's the head of housing and urban development, the African American?
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson.
Yeah, Ben Carson.
So Ben Carson's running for president.
Ben Carson was an idiot.
Okay. Actually, he's not an idiot. He was an incredible surgeon.
And he's an idiot.
Who did crazy.
And your IQ does not disqualify you from being idiotic. Okay, that's a big misconception.
Ben Carson,
I didn't call him stupid. I didn't call him dumb. I called him idiotic. Idiotic is behavior. It's got nothing to do with mental
aptitude. He did tons of charity in the context of medicine. He grew up with an illiterate mother who put him in the situation where she made him go to the library every day and read. He came out of poverty.
Highly accomplished.
Okay.
Highly accomplished. There's a time where
he's running for president.
There was a time when black parents in America would have loved for their children to grow up and become Ben Carson.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But that's Ben Carson and his world and what he does in his particular field that he's highly trained in.
Okay.
Ben Carson moves out of that field and gets into politics and all of this kind of stuff. And he's not really trained for that in the same way that Trump isn't trained for that.
But so white people that ideologically disagree with Ben Carson, they're not racist just because they didn't vote for him, right?
No.
Okay. But if a white person ideologically disagrees with Obama, is he a racist because he didn't support Obama?
No, not in ideology. I don't believe that.
Do you consider Obama the first black president, or you consider him the first biracial president? I mean, obviously, he had a different upbringing. Private school, super wealth.
Okay, so this is the argument that we don't necessarily have in America, but outside of America.
Okay.
Like my British friend, Dizzy, he was very adamant that Obama was not a black president. He was a mixed race president. And his justification was Obama's mother was white.
Right.
Grandparents were white.
And he was raised by white people.
And raised by white people.
So there's privilege.
I don't know about privilege.
Private school, Hawaii, come on. It doesn't get more privilege than that. And he went from a private university in L.A., very elite, to Columbia to Harvard. All privilege. Now, he might have gotten roadblocks and suffered from, just like Michelle. Michelle had a very poignant take on Princeton.
Privilege is, I think, more associated with wealth.
I'm talking. Well, they were right. No. That's what I'm saying. Socioeconomic privilege. I'm not saying skin color privilege.
Yeah. So, but I think that, gosh, how do I really explain this? I think that with Obama, there is a different level of looking at situations where I think a lot of black people felt that Obama was going to pick up the baton for all these black issues.
Well, why didn't he? Like the war on drugs. Because how disappointed were you about his failure to reclassify marijuana or do anything serious about the war?
I was upset about it, but I think that's more of a moral standpoint. I think that's just where he was in life, and I think that kind of thing sends the wrong message to certain people. I think the problem with Obama is the fact that it's not an overall sensitivity to the black needs or the black experience. right? Now, I'm not saying that he had any less of a black experience because he was mixed race. I'm sure he got objectified. I'm sure he got,
Well, weren't those
pigeonholed
always the
certain
guys that
things.
got the shit? I mean, I grew up in a very diverse setting, okay?
Right.
And it felt to me, I had a friend Bean, who, African American father, blonde, little bitty mother. And this is the '80s when you didn't see it as frequently as you did now. And I always felt like Bean got the worst of it from all the bigots. And I'm not just saying white bigots. I'm saying bigots across. I'll agree with you that using the term racism as directed to an African American is inappropriate. But there are black people that are bigots, right? That just
Well, that's in every race,
right?
And that's
I
and
agree.
that's the problem with the races. This is why we can't overcome racism because there's internal racism as far.
Oh yeah,
you know
that's
what
what
I'm
I
saying?
think. If we were all the same color, we would be the eye color that we were bigoted about, or the hair color. Like we're always going to find some shit to be bigoted. But I felt like, at least in my generation, and Obama's a little bit older than me, but not much. Well, I'm 46. You're 45. What's Obama like? Like 53?
Maybe 53, probably
Okay.
within 10 years.
But
of
man,
us.
I felt like the mixed race kids always got the worst shit. Like they didn't really fit in anywhere.
Well, yeah, because you don't fit in, and I think that Obama, because he was raised by his white parents, has a different level of sensitivity than most black men would have had going into.
Like I felt like
Like,
the
you
young
can't
mixed
just-
race guys were fighting all the time, and they were fighting everybody. Like they didn't have
and
a clique.
Obama can't just go in and say, "Well, I need to do this for black people," because in the back of his mind, he has to wonder if he's doing something that may go against his own family.
But why do we have to do anything that'll hurt? I mean, why isn't it just a positive solution, right? Like why do we?
I
like
wish we could sit on this show and come up with a positive solution
But
for
when we
everything. But human beings aren't that simple.
I get it, but when we talk about like there's a problem with the education system in America, especially towards African American students, that they are not performing at the same rate on the ACT and the SAT. Okay, so what we're doing is we are giving to just elite schools. I'm not talking about regular schools, but the most elite private universities are taking much lower scores for African American applicants on the ACT and the SAT to consider them. But why not fix the problem, right? Because a lot of times the benefits are being realized
Well, the problem
by
is
African American kids that are super wealthy that don't have the same problem because they have the tutors and all that shit,
Right.
but they get the benefit from the lower scores. Whereas the reality is it's a mixture of poverty and race and,
and it's about trying to make it a level playing field. Because for years it wasn't.
right. No. It absolutely wasn't. Like anyone that says it was, it wasn't. But the reality is what we're making an unlevel playing field now, which I think increases bitterness, right? I think young white students who have a 33 on the, let's say a 32 on the ACT would never be considered by an Ivy League school. And they're seeing African American students have a 29 who are getting in. And I'm not talking about sports. I'm talking about
and that's
pure
that's because African American kids that may have had a 38 or a 40.
Well, 36 is the cap,
Well, I'm
but
saying,
yeah.
kids with a higher score weren't even considered, even if they had the score.
Oh, no, I agree.
And so it's
now,
about that. So, but that doesn't necessarily present itself as reverse racism, right?
I know it doesn't, but that's how a lot of people perceive it, right?
That perception can lie to you all the time.
But
That's just how
perception
you
is-
see it.
But if you're pushing people into towards bigotry, is it a solution?
Well, no, people are going to look for a reason to blame somebody for why something didn't happen. And if you don't understand why certain black people need an advantage in certain situations.
Well, right, but you see, that's the key. Certain, okay. Why would the child of two black doctors from Friendswood be able to benefit the same way that a child that grew up 3 blocks from the media block would? Why isn't the analysis deeper?
I can't really speak to that, but all I can say is that overtly, I mean, because we don't know what the parents went through to become doctors.
Oh,
right?
no, I know, but we
can't just say that the parents
But
had
a kid at
privilege,
my
yeah.
kid's private school shouldn't be usurping the benefits that are designed for kids from the inner city.
Well, I don't know if you get to decide that, Charles.
Oh, I don't get to decide. Nobody
don't-
decides, but that's the same. Just like a soldier
Because
that's never been to war.
Because we have a president who was not a great student, but still was able to
Oh,
excel
no, yeah, fucking
and get into great
let me tell you,
colleges and all of
legacy
that
is
kind of
bullshit.
stuff. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, this thing works both ways.
Oh,
Right?
no.
And it's not perfect, but it's necessary. People have to look as
people
if they're
shouldn't
trying
be able to buy
change
their
it.
way into school,
Right.
And but see, that's what's happening with
But
these
people
Ivy
shouldn't
League
be,
schools.
and your thing is that people shouldn't be able to lie their way into school.
I think it should be a pure meritocracy, and then the solution should be to look at why these kids are not scoring as well and put more funding into raising the scores and making it a level,
But
a
a lot of
truly
that,
level.
a lot of
playing
it
field.
isn't just education, like you said. It's poverty involved as well. You can send a child to a school that has the best education, but if he goes home at night and he's not eating well, he's not eating properly,
No,
the parents aren't reinforcing what they're being taught in school, they're not helping them with the homework, then that just comes up to the individual child having the drive and the initiative
but there are white kids in the same.
better.
So there are more white kids in that circumstance than black kids, not per capita, but in aggregate numbers, right? There
Right.
because there's just more white people in poverty, and what you do is when clearly there was a broken system, right? And then we fix the system and we keep tweaking the system. But what do we get back? When do we get to the point in America where we're not making decisions based on race? We're making decisions based on individuals.
Well, that's kind of what the dream was that Trump was kind of selling, was that, you don't, just because you're poor and you white doesn't mean that you don't get a piece of it like the other poor people get. And just because, it's really like, how do I phrase this? I feel like, well, here's the thing, right? The poor white man is the only group in America that no one protests for,
But no one gives a shit.
that no one gives a shit about. It's
Right.
literally the one group of people in America that nobody gives a shit
Right.
about until President Trump.
Yeah.
And he sets the fire up under them.
Do you think he really gives a shit about them?
I don't think he gives a shit about anybody
fuck no.
personally. I think he's just really good at selling a dream. I think that's what he does.
To bring it back to today, does Trump get credit for the denuclearization of North Korea if it happens, and the bringing North Korea into the fold of civilized nations if it happens?
Yes, it does, but I mean, it still doesn't mean that the human rights situation in North Korea is going to go
Well,
away.
no, but I'm saying, let's say they fix all that. Let's say the nuclear problem goes away, the sanctions go away, the starvation goes away. They bring them into the fold. We see a path
then
towards reunification.
no one gets credit for that but President Trump, and then,
Okay.
and then maybe in a few circles, Dennis Rodman, right?
All right,
you know
all right.
what I'm saying? We can argue that.
I almost wore my Rodman jersey.
We can argue that all day. I do think that while I don't think that Rodman had anything to do with bringing the United States to the table, I think that Rodman has been, which is very strange to me, that this is the person that's been able to kind of shift the perception of what an American is, right?
Right. No, I mean, Kim Jong, he evil son of a bitch, but he's a big fan of American basketball.
Right.
And he
And-
opened up community. I mean, he basically opened his arms to Rodman, whether Rodman should or shouldn't have accepted
Which I'm
him.
sure he wanted to be closer to other more famous people, but
Right.
Rodman is a champion, right? Rodman's a champion. Rodman's a legend.
Do people
Rodman's gonna
don't get how important a basketball player Rodman was? I mean, when you're getting 22 rebounds in a playoff game for the Bulls,
because his personal choices have been questionable, right? That's kind of it, and that's not how we don't in America want our heroes to present themselves with piercings and wigs and potentially dresses.
do you
and that
think do
kind
we
of a
still
thing.
care?
In
like,
America?
like in 2018 America? you think?
Absolutely
I mean,
we
I
do.
understand back then when he was cross-dressing, it was a big deal. But like now, I mean,
Yeah, I think in the way that we have more people that are open to these things, that are really willing to say, you know what, I don't have a problem with gay people. I don't have a problem with trans people. I think there are more people now who are willing to say, I have a big problem with gay people. I have a big problem with trans people.
you think there's more people now willing to say that?
Yes. There's more people now that are willing to voice ugly opinions about things.
But, like,
and
when we
fight
were
the status
kids,
quo. And I
saying-
mean, look, this whole thing about, there's this whole thing now about people are too soft and they're too sensitive and they're too politically correct. We have to be too politically correct, and what's wrong with ruffling feathers and stuff
But
like that.
when we were
people
kids, we
from
called everyone
only people from a privileged situation that belong to a group that isn't ridiculed and ostracized can even have that argument.
Okay, but when we were kids,
Right.
you would say that's gay to anything that was
Not masculine.
Right. It was completely just and people don't do that anymore, right? But
Yeah, because we live in because if you do, then you'll get called out for it. You'll get called a homophobic.
but you don't think maybe it's because homophobia is dwindling and people are more accepting? I remember I was an early advocate for gay marriage.
No,
right?
I do.
And
I do not
people
think homophobia is-
like I used to get hatred, all that. I mean, and we're talking back when even the Clintons were anti-gay marriage. I was always like, "Fuck it, people need to be able to live how they want to live. If dudes want to fuck dudes, let them fuck dudes. What the fuck is wrong with you? If chicks want to do, let them. Let people live their own." But okay, so I mean, keep it relevant. The baker, The Supreme Court case, we
Right.
saw that come down, and basically it's not as strong as like Ted Cruz just lied to America when he said now doctors and teachers will have protection. Teachers
That's
aren't going to
bullshit.
be able to refuse a curriculum because they religiously disagree with it.
No,
They
they're
didn't
gonna
turn
be
America
fired.
to
They're gonna be
theocracy. Right.
fired.
But this Baker, he was a devoutly religious, but he wouldn't make Halloween cakes. He was just this really, really fundamentally religious guy. And I mean, the context, people say they're fundamentalists. They should read Leviticus and see if they're really fucking fundamental.
Right. And
But
see if we'll
it's-
put the bacon down. And all that
right,
kind of
right.
stuff.
But he didn't believe in gay marriage, and he said he would make them a cake, but he would not make them a gay wedding cake. Okay, and he created the cakes. It wasn't like you walked in and just took one off the shelf. But he did have that stuff, and he would sell those to gay people anytime. You know, he wasn't like the diner in the 50s that wouldn't serve the black man, or the hotel in the 50s that wouldn't let the black man sleep under his roof. He was like, look, I'm not making a gay wedding cake because it is antithetical to my religion. And basically, they came in Texas. Being gay is not a protected class. Okay, federally, not a protected class.
Right.
It is a protected class in Colorado. I think this was the Colorado case. And then they came back and said, look, you'll discriminate against Christianity. No. Do you think he should be compelled to make the cake, or you think he should have the option not to make the cake?
No, and I think that's because, and I think this is less of a case about people's sexuality than it is about someone's religion.
Or just
And in this
liberty
country-
generally.
Yeah,
right?
I think in this country we put religion above pretty much everything. And if someone has a sound religious argument, we're a lot prone to step on people's personal lifestyle decisions than we are to step on someone's religion.
Well,
because this country likes to say that it's built on religion, right?
Well, but that's actually a machination of the 40s and the 50s in America. We were very much anti. I mean, the First Amendment's not just freedom of speech; it's the anti-establishment clause. We can't have an established state religion. We as a country, most of our founding fathers were considered to be Christians, but they were also really considered to be deists, which is more of an expansive. I believe in that the God created everything. I don't necessarily believe in all these weird rules that you're telling me I got to follow. And I don't believe in a jealous, spiteful God. I mean, what would be the fucking point of God being petty, right? Like, why would God send an Indian kid that was born of Buddhist parents in the middle of India to hell just because he was never exposed to Christianity?
Well,
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, but I don't think it's more of a petty God. I mean, for me, I don't look at religion and
Okay,
God
but do you
as
think
being
if you
petty.
haven't accepted Jesus as your Savior, but you're like the most moral, wonderful person in the world, you're going to hell?
I think that's up to you. I think that's up to how you choose to live your life. I mean, as far like, I'm a Baptist, I'm a Christian,
Right, no, I know.
and I believe that if you don't accept Jesus in your life before you die, then you will probably
See,
go to hell.
and I would argue that
But
that is a
that-
construct of denominations of religions wanting to force people to participate in their organized religion. That it's petty, right? When the Catholic Church started, right? The Catholic Church was like, you got to give us 10%. If you don't accept us, you're going to fucking hell. You didn't accept us, we're going to proselytize by the sword. And Muslim church, or Muslim religion, proselytize by the sword. If you don't accept us, you're going to fucking hell. But the reality is, they're all just trying to get people's money, right?
I can't agree with that.
Oh, no. I'm not talking to church holistically. I mean, obviously I do good works, but when you read the Bible, let's say you focus on the red letter Bible, which is just Jesus' words. He's not petty. He's like, no, we all need to fucking love each other. You need to be good. You need to live this. And a lot of it's based on translation from Aramaic to whatever, to Old English to English. I'd like to think that God, and much like the founding fathers, that God is a loving creature that has expectations of people to live moral lives, right? And if they're going to give them the glory of heaven, it's like if you use it if Hitler was on his deathbed and said, Jesus, forgive me, he goes to heaven, but some kid born in Asia who never knew Christianity would go to hell because he died without accepting
But
Jesus.
I mean, but in Asia doesn't mean he doesn't have some kind of religious thing that he maybe has.
Right, but not Christ, right?
Right, but I think God is God depending on the religion. I think God
Well,
is God.
okay, that was my question, right?
Yeah, like I feel like the same God that the Christian, looks to follow the tenets.
Well, that was
of
my-
is the
that was
same-
what I was
is the
asking
same
you.
God that the Catholics. Everyone uses different names
right.
for the same thing. Everyone uses different practices and principles to get to the same place.
Okay.
Right. So you may call God this, you may call God that, but there's still some shit you got to do, and there's still a certain way you got to live, a certain tenets you got to follow in order to be accepted into the good place. That exists on earth, and I believe it exists in the afterlife.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, you
If
can't
people,
just. I mean, you
if
can't
people
just.
had to say specifically Jesus in your book, or they could say God of their own.
No, no. I
Right.
mean, if it's Allah, if it's Krishna, if it's all, in my class, we define religion as whatever makes a person want to live a good life, but then
Okay.
also asks the tough questions about life. That's how you kind of rationalize being here and going through certain things that you go through in order to learn certain things that make your experience here more palatable.
Right.
And because I mean, everybody's gonna have fucked up shit happening to them,
Right.
And it's the concept of a higher power and a better place in life after this life that kind of keeps people's temperaments down to a certain extent. Now, people also pervert religion. We see that with Islamic, terrorists. We see this with Klansmen and white supremacy. Everyone's trying to take different things from the Bible to justify their actions, whether they're good actions towards their fellow man or bad actions towards people that they don't consider their fellow man.
Let's keep it relevant. So, the Chronicle did a little series on a pastor that you're a big fan of here in town, mega church pastor, about his wealth and his River Oaks home and that. And then you've got
Wait. Which fact? Because I'm not necessarily a big fan of.
Not Gray.
Yeah, no.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not. That's not my home church.
Okay.
I go to Bible study.
Okay.
Not great, but that's not my home church.
But I wasn't talking about Pastor Gray. I was talking about his former boss.
Absolutely.
But they did a
Well,
kind
I've
of
had issues with that. I've had issues.
right.
With
The
that.
prosperity doctrine generally, when you're saying give me money or give my church money, because he doesn't really take money from the church, right?
Yeah.
But give my church money and you'll benefit. You don't really find that in Christianity anywhere, right? I mean, you do loosely talking about tithing and stuff.
Oh no. There's a lot of prosperity pastors in Christianity. There's a lot of guys with Creflo dollars and
right,
guys like that. There was a guy that was just on the news that was telling people they needed a plane. Right?
I know. Well, that's what I was getting to. So you have this guy basically saying, I need a $50 million jet to do my proselytizing. What do you think about that? And then when you see a pastor that you're very close friends with and very involved in his church that is not on that level by any means, but he's still a television preacher. How do you reconcile the two? What do you think the differences are between the two?
Well, I think the differences are of that if someone is giving the word in a way that you can accept it, in a way that it gives you a certain feeling inside, then you should give whatever you want to give.
Right.
But, there's scripture that says that, that Jesus says, my children will never beg. We're not supposed to, a Christian is never, especially a pastor, is never supposed to overtly ask for money for things that they need. Okay. Anything that they want is supposed to be to lift up the kingdom.
Yeah, that jet shit was disgusting. Right?
Well, the jet, his whole justification for the jet was that he needed a better jet and a bigger jet so that he didn't have to have stops on the way to getting to where he was trying to go. Like basically, the layover was the devil.
Okay, so
kind of a thing.
So basically, when y'all were flying with Tony back and y'all to stop in Iceland and gas up, that was the devil wagon.
That's the devil.
That was the devil wagon.
God wants him to have a bigger plane that doesn't have to stop as much.
See, I personally think that these giant churches, I mean that, and I know you can use snippets from the Bible to justify anything, right?
Absolutely.
Good
or bad.
Did I ever tell you about
Moral
the
or
Aryan Brotherhood Bible that I pulled out of the trash?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I mean, and that was all highlighted with craziness. But I mean, Jesus was pretty adamant about the whole temples, and I mean, I think religion's a much more personal experience. But I think if you go to a church and you're inspired to be a better person, that's my problem with the holistically denigration of Lakewood or any big. But he does inspire a bunch of people. I mean, look at Slim. I mean,
that's good. You can be an inspirational speaker. You can be a Tony Robbins, right? And go around the country speaking and inspiring people.
Did you see
without
him at
using
the
the
games?
name of God?
Did you see him at the Rocket games? Tony Robbins.
No, he was. He was
there.
He
was there. Man, he's got a big ass head.
Yeah, he's got a huge head.
I mean, damn, that's a weird looking head. I was in one of those.
He doesn't have a head that fits his body size, right? I don't know how big his body would have to be.
His head would fit my gut. So,
anyway, that's a big gut too.
So the Rockets, we haven't even done this since the Rockets folded, man.
This is crazy. Is that political? Was there politics at play in that?
I don't know if there's politics in play. I mean, I do think that David Silver wants the Golden State to play, and I think that the refs, could have been more even keeled, but you can't miss 27 3-pointers.
No, no, no. I mean, you give guys a win when you're just shooting wild and reckless like that, and I think that had a lot to do with Chris Paul not being there.
Do you think LeBron? And I know this isn't a sports thing, but do you think LeBron owes a debt to Cleveland and the impoverished communities that he's
I think
from?
he's already done that. I think he gives enough money of himself to the community. I think he does all of that. He came back, right? When he left, he felt like he left wrong. The city felt the same way.
Right.
He came back to the city. He brought them a championship, and I don't know how much he necessarily owes that city for him to play there. Now, I understand when LeBron's in your city, opportunity comes to your city, right? Corporations come to your city.
Right.
Dollars come to your city. People come to your city, right? I get that from an economic standpoint, but I think a person's personal happiness has to come into play, right?
Yeah, no. Politically, not as I think we could both agree that Jordan is the GOAT, right?
Yeah,
basketball-wise, but politically. And I mean, I'm a big fan. You know, I couldn't have Jordans when I was a kid because we couldn't afford them, so I have a bunch of fucking Jordans now. But thank you for one-upping me on the Travis Scott 4s with the red laces. I mean, I was just happy I got a pair, and then you're breaking off red laces.
Yeah, I broke
and a
everybody.
friends and family T-shirt.
It wasn't just you. I broke everybody off with that outfit.
Clearly, so I would argue that while Michael's the GOAT, basketball-wise, politically and socially, I would readily argue that LeBron's the GOAT. Like, he has done so much.
Yeah, because Jordan,
Michael owns prisons and exploits his community.
Has personally done things that everybody doesn't agree with, or things that, or he doesn't carry himself in the way that people would want someone that they look up to, and a person that was very liquid, how to carry themselves in a social manner.
Very selfish.
That being said, though, I mean, like Charles Barkley said, I'm not a role model. It's not his job to be that, right? I'm sure he donates money in certain places. Like, I know his
nothing like LeBron, though.
Yeah, that's true, and I can't really argue that. I know that Jordan has his Wings Foundation that does give back, and they build parks and stuff like that, and basketball courts and.
But LeBron has done so much. Like, if LeBron comes here, there's so. You think we got any shot?
I think we got a shot. I think we got a good shot. The odds are with us. We're the number 2 odds
after Philadelphia, or
I think after the Lakers. I think after the Lakers, but I don't see the Lakers being as big a draw, and I don't want to stay too long on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But I just don't see the Lakers being that big of a draw to LeBron, because there isn't anything that LeBron can't do in LA, being wherever he is. Like, all the corporate opportunities he's had, being on TV shows, being in movies, he never lived in LA for that.
Well, and if he three-peated in LA, nobody would fucking care. If he three-peated in Houston
or Cleveland. For that matter. Right?
Well, he's not going to three-peat. They don't have that. I mean, anyway. So, what political topic of the last 4 weeks were we missing? We got to be missing something. There's so much crazy shit.
Well, I think it's a lot of different local stuff that's been happening in different communities around the country. We usually tend to stay on the bigger topics here, because I feel like there's a lot of big stuff that people need to know about. But there are a lot of little things happening, but I wouldn't say it's political. It's more like criminal justice and that kind of a thing.
It just seems like there's some big elephant in the room that we're forgetting, and I hate that, because we usually plan a hell of more. We just
and it's usually, like I said, we're usually very topical. Hold on, what? No, we've talked about Kanye.
Well, I don't think we've talked about Kanye since we've been off since the slavery was a choice, though.
Yeah, but that's not politics. That's just one person's personal opinion. Kanye isn't a political figure. He doesn't have any.
Well, he says he's going to run for president.
Yeah, that's just bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's bullshit. I mean, so did who else is saying?
Roseanne Barr said she was.
Yeah, I mean, The Rock said he was running for president too. I mean, it's just bluster. I feel like I don't think Kanye is going to actually run for president.
Yeah, well,
I don't believe that at all. Because for him to run in 2020, he'd have to run against Trump, and Trump's his friend. Yeah. So why would you want to run against the president that you believe in, whose policies you co-sign?
Yeah. Meghan Markle, how important do you think she is for African Americans as the first biracial or black?
Again, it's biracial, but then certain people don't see the bi in it. Obviously, there are people in the royal family that aren't crazy
You
about
just
it.
see that picture of the Queen looking kind of sketch at the wedding. I thought it was a mean picture because she's apparently been very friendly to her. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, she's an older person, so you're gonna see her looking crazy from time to time. Old people just make old faces
right,
sometimes.
right, right, right.
But there's people, definitely people in royal lineage that, I mean, there was the one that was wearing the old
Oh yeah, the
racist
old yeah, and then
the
claimed
Moor
she
thing.
didn't, like some duchess or something,
Yeah,
right?
and like, no, she didn't know that's not what she meant to
Bitch,
wear and all of that. We're
please.
not trying to hear that.
But do you
I
think
do
it's important?
I think it's important. I think it's a big thing for little girls from everywhere because she
Yeah.
doesn't come from a polished life. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Oh no, broken home, bunch of but
Absolutely.
she is fine as hell, right? I mean,
I mean, she's
come
a
on,
nice
she's
looking woman.
beautiful.
She's a
Come on.
nice looking woman. That's not what I would have. I mean, I never would have thought that would have been who he would have chosen.
Did you see the picture of his ex girlfriend? Why would you go
Yes.
to that fucking wedding, right? Just
Oh no,
looking
you have
like
to go. You have to go to that wedding, even
right,
if
but
you're
you
not.
go, but you stunt, right? You don't go and look sad,
No, no, no. You got to go and like you say, you got to stunt. You got to get you a really, really handsome date,
right?
right? Somebody that's more handsome than Harry, that that but doesn't come from bullshit. Like you can't just go get a pretty face.
Right.
You got to get somebody that's got his own thing. But I mean, it's London. It's Great Britain. It's the UK. It doesn't matter who you are. You'll never be more than them.
Right, right. And I mean, I disagree with an aristocracy generally. Like, I'm not impressed by it at all.
Yeah, no, I
But
mean because it costs a lot for that
$80
country
million
to take
for
care
the
of
wedding
that family.
alone.
And a lot of that was security, though. I'm sure. Right?
Well, they apparently they paid half, but it's half. I don't know. Are we going to be in London in like 8 weeks? Are we
are.
doing that?
Miss Freeman keeps acting like she doesn't want to go, but she's going.
See, I can't buy my ticket till at least Bun buys his ticket, right?
She's
I
full of
mean,
it.
like I
She
don't want to.
keeps-
I don't want to buy the ticket there and not be allowed in the thing because my partner didn't show up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, no. The problem is that these flights are crazy,
Yeah.
and she's not crazy about spending because she's not going to fly coach.
No, 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 no. That's
She's
fucking
not
nuts.
gonna
These
fly coach.
fucking.
And it's not even getting to London that's really the problem. I think it's getting back from
Japan.
Japan.
Yeah.
That's far from a cheap flight.
Yeah, and actually, I thought that was cheaper than the London. I don't remember. I looked like 3 weeks ago, but then I keep waiting for you to pull the trigger.
Well, what it is that there's different prices for round trip and different
Yeah.
prices for one way.
Right,
So
right.
if we were going round trip to Japan, it's not that bad, but it's that one way ticket that's pretty crazy. Flights originating from Tokyo are pretty insane.
I mean,
I mean, we're gonna have to bite the bullet or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's gonna be her trigger to pull, I
Yeah.
think.
come on, Queen.
But I just can't pass up the idea of
20th
going,
anniversary.
of going. No, not even that. I mean, the 20th anniversary is a big deal, and it's going to be a lot of people that I probably haven't seen in years that are going
Right.
to come up. But it's Tokyo. I just can't. The whole cultural
Mount
impact.
Fuji is what I'm most stoked about.
I'm just stoked about going to Japan.
And they're
Period.
doing it in
and
an
really,
Escalade. Come on.
for me, it's about the tradition of Japan. Like
Right.
I'd like to go to a traditional Japanese tea house.
Oh fuck.
I mean, sushi is the other thing too, but I mean, you can get great sushi in America too.
Nobu just opened.
But I would like to go to the fish market.
Yeah.
It's the Kilgiri or something like that. But there's the world famous fish market
Right.
in Japan. That I wouldn't mind going to.
That
and
is the
seeing
one
that.
drawback of Gumball. We've gotten way off the field of politics, but we got this Gumball 3000 rally coming up. Is you don't feel like you get enough time to experience the vibrancy of any city other than the start city and the end city. 'Cause
Well,
you're in
it
and out.
depends. It depends on how you want to do it. Like you don't have to go to the parties.
Right.
Right? You're not obligated to go to
Right.
the parties. Most guys want to go to the parties and
Right.
they get a kick out of that. There's other guys who want to do the traditional things that you do. Like when we went to Turkey, there were guys that wanted to go out and party in Turkey, in Istanbul, because Istanbul has an insane
I didn't realize they did Istanbul another time. I know we canceled it on ours. So
Yeah, we drove into Istanbul before.
That's fucking.
That was the
nice.
finish line.
Was it just the highways must have been shit? Huh?
Garbage. And it was, I mean, and Istanbul also has like a lot of like still debris from different war
Right.
stuff like that. There's still like shit that's been kind of messed up that hasn't all
Well, like
been fixed.
Romania, when we got off that EU highway and we were just on Romanian roads, it was
Nothing
fucked
was
up.
worse than Serbia, like going into Serbia and Bosnia.
Oh yeah, we went through a little bit of that for a second. and
Yeah,
then
no, we slept in Serbia.
that must have
and-
been weird as shit.
I mean, office buildings 22, 23 stories high with window units.
that's just dangerous.
I mean, they have their projects here, their projects there, in terms of size and length and all of that. I mean, New York has pretty tall and pretty stretched out projects.
Right, right.
And I mean, you come back to America and you'll kiss the ground you walk on after going through those projects.
See, so Japan, I'm thinking Japan's going to be very regulated about the speeding and the, like, I don't think it'll be the funnest driving.
I think it will. I think we're going to terrorize their streets just like we terrorize anybody else. And I don't think it'll be worse than Germany. It can't be worse than Germany.
You know, but Germany, like me and Chris, and I forget the long-haired cameraman that rode with us that day.
Who's that, Nick?
It wasn't Nick, it was Nick's buddy.
Oh, okay. I know you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Yeah,
right
I can't think of his name. Cool cat. But so we kind of went off the beaten path and went our own way. Fortunately, we never got stopped, but they were stopping people on the fucking road and shit. I found Germany to be beautiful. I mean, just,
Oh no, it's beautiful roads, a beautiful highway.
like
The
you don't think of
Autobahn's
Germany
amazing.
being beautiful until you're in Germany, like the
No,
fields of
I'll tell
flowers.
you what's
and the,
beautiful that we tend to take for granted. America's beautiful.
oh, America! Why aren't we doing America anymore? We haven't done America in 3 years.
Yeah, because he doesn't really get the impact that he's been trying to get. That's been the problem.
No traction.
Yeah. I mean, because his whole thing is to get maybe even 1% of car culture merch. Right. Like he spends an insane amount of money
Right.
throwing these big events in America and bringing everybody over to America. And here's the other thing too. The other thing is that if you're American and you get tickets in Europe, it doesn't really reflect on your record here. But if you're from somewhere else and you get tickets in America, it reflects on your record.
Yeah, I didn't even
back
worry
home.
about that shit when I was fucking.
Like when we drive another country, I don't give a shit. I just
Right.
drive, I race, I speed, and I don't care about
Oh, really?
it.
Yeah, I've tried to follow you before. It's not fun.
I'm out there trying to get it, man. Fuck it.
I'm
I'm
gonna
trying
get
to.
it.
I don't even think in terms of police and tickets and getting pulled over and all of that when I'm overseas. Even though some of those places could get sketchy.
I will be seatbelted in the back seat with pillows and airbags
Not me.
and smoking weed.
I will be in. Yeah, right.
I can do
right.
it over there, right? My kids will be a continent away.
That's a political question. That's what Ms. Freeman's been asking me. Like, which of these countries are legal?
I
Like
do
we're
not
going to
know.
Costa Rica next week. We're trying to figure out the legality of that kind of stuff. Because some of these countries have very, very strange laws.
Oh,
Like,
very strict. too.
like going to the Philippines, you don't want to get caught with drugs in the Philippines.
Yeah, because they'll kill you.
Yeah, they'll kill. Singapore is the same way.
I've heard Japan's really bad.
Really?
I think that if
Well,
you're
they
going
say
to
in
smoke marijuana, it should be you're picking it up at the destination. I think there should be no marijuana going across borders because that's where you get. But
Well, yeah, I think that's a safe argument. But Japan is crazy because Japan, all the harder drugs are more readily available than
Right,
marijuana. Like
right.
marijuana is the drug that you almost can't really get in Japan.
so in the past, I mean,
Like
listeners know you.
cocaine, crack cocaine, heroin.
But you don't do any of that.
Right.
Listeners
No,
know
no.
you smoke marijuana.
No,
right?
but I'm saying, but all that other shit is actually, from what I keep hearing from people that have gone to Japan over and over, that's the hard shit to get, is the marijuana.
It should be legal. So in the past, because we've never been in a car together. I've just been in a different car. How did you transfer? Did you transfer marijuana in cross state, not state line, but country lines in the past, or
yeah.
was it?
Oh yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. I don't think the, German
Yeah,
government
they're not
is listening
listening.
to
Right.
my podcast.
Right.
But yeah, no, I would fly over with a little weed sometimes. And we start in London. A lot of times when we go overseas, it starts
Mm-hmm.
in London. So it's, it's readily available in London. It's not
Yeah.
that hard to get. But then like when we started in Dublin that year,
Right.
the only people that had access to marijuana was the IRA.
What the fuck?
So that's who I had to get weed from. And
You got to get the weed from like Irish radical terrorist groups.
yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
Which to me, like, brought a new sense of the argument of that when you buy illegal drugs, you're helping the terrorists.
Oh no, that's all you're doing is fueling narco terrorism. But that's the government's fault for their prohibition, not the purchaser's fault for the appetite.
Right.
I mean, it's, we want to bitch about Mexico. Mexico's our fault, by our, I mean America. I still feel like we're missing some big thing, but I ain't got no fucking idea what it is.
I can't. As soon as we cut this, as soon as we push stop and walk out of here, we'll be like,
God damn
fuck,
it, why didn't we talk about this shit?
How did we not talk about this?
Yeah. Any concerts coming up? Anything to promote on the podcast?
No, going to Costa Rica this week.
I remember one thing I was going to say. How the fuck did 97 It was not the local 97.9, but what is it, 97 Hot Jams, or what was that radio station?
Hot 97.
Hot 97.
Yeah.
Out of Atlanta, or where are they at?
They're in New York.
New York.
The
How
hotbed
the
of.
fuck do they confuse you with Pimp C? And I don't know if it was an insult, but it's just...
Here's the thing. That happens more than people think.
Really?
It really does. And Ms. Freeman will agree with me on this one. She's been there. People will see me, immediately identify me as UGK,
Okay.
right? And the first thing that comes to their head when they think UGK is Pimp C, right? Bun B, even if Bun B's standing in front of them, Pimp C is the thing that comes to their head.
Okay.
First. And people will literally be, oh, shit, that's Pimp C. And I'd be like, Bun B. And they feel
Right.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
fucked up. But
right.
it happens a lot.
Okay.
It happens a lot. And it's not, I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think people are just kind of, I think if people see Tito or Randy or something like that, they probably would be like, oh, fuck, that's Michael Jackson, one of the Jacksons or something like that. We're just kind of thrown in this lot together for life. Mm-hmm. It doesn't bother me. I know what people mean. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think people are saying it out of disrespect or to not honor him or anything like that. The problem with that was for one, on Twitter, you have an opportunity to check the tweet before you put the tweet out.
Right.
And I think this person just really didn't have that. I don't know. You can't say they didn't have a frame of reference because they knew enough to say Pimp C.
Right. I mean,
They knew enough to say Underground Kings.
urban radio station.
But and this is the premier hip hop station
Right.
in the world, not just in America.
Right.
Hot 97 would be widely considered the number one station for the promotion and playing and support of hip hop music.
Okay.
And I don't know.
So
if
they're going to give the new album some spins to say, oh, I'm sorry, because that would be a...
I would hope so. I mean, and those guys are good. I know Ebro and those guys, Ebro, Enough, Megan, everybody that we associate with over there, Rosenberg, they're all great people. They're all good people, and they're super conscious. They
Right.
just don't control the social media for the station. And everybody blames it on being a young person. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah, I mean, they could have not even been born.
Right.
Not, well, they would have been born, but when you... So did you...
Well, I mean, it depends. If they're 21 years old and Big Pimpin' came out when they were 4.
Right.
So I don't know what that is in their lives.
So do you have a release date for the new album?
August 31st.
Okay, and just across all platforms? Or
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere. So
who's distributing it? Empire or something?
Empire's going to probably distribute it. And so we're just looking to get a lot of visuals out. We just shot the new video for Know What I'm Saying, which I had shot one before, but it was more of a concept video. I was trying to do something this different artistically to try to get more attention to it, and the concept didn't evolve out in the way that we wanted it to.
That often happens when you go too high, highbrow. It's hard to actually translate.
Well, Michel Gondry, who is a man, by the way, he's a Frenchman, very, very innovative director, had just shot a short film all on the iPhone.
Okay.
And then at the same time, Steven Soderbergh was releasing a movie called Unsane.
Right.
Which was all shot on the
Right.
iPhone.
Right.
So I was like, maybe if we and the Michel Gondry short film was like plastered all over Apple, like iTunes,
Right.
and everybody was really, really pushing it because it was all shot on the iPhone.
Right.
And I thought if we shot our whole music video on an iPhone,
Right.
that maybe it would get us more traction
Right.
with a company like Apple, because you want to be involved with the big dogs.
Most certainly.
You know what I'm saying? And it just didn't have the look and the feel that I wanted for the video. I feel like it had to, for what we were trying to do and what we were trying to shoot, it needed to come off a little bit more high end. And so that's why we never put that video out. I had it, it was cut together and edited and everything, but it just didn't. And we tried to shoot it in conjunction with an event. So it's not like we were in control of the surroundings and the circumstances. We were just trying to, okay, well, all these cars and all this, energy is going to be in this one place on this one day. Let's go there and try to catch it in real time. And videos just don't work like that.
Right.
A lot of times it has to be preparation. It has to be isolated areas. You know what I'm saying? You need to be able to maneuver in the way that you need to maneuver. And that situation just didn't offer us that.
So 7 songs on Kanye's last album.
Yeah.
The latest. How many songs are you did? You were talking about an EP for a while, but you're doing a full album, right?
Yeah, we're going to do a full album because the whole issue with the EP is about, we were like, well, let's put out a couple of songs, let people know we're back. But, you only have to put out one song for people to know that you're back. And then the other side of it is that a lot of the revenue comes from streaming, and if you don't have a lot of songs, you don't get a lot of streams.
Okay.
So if you've only got 7 songs on a project where if you had 12 songs, people would be streaming the other 5 as well,
Right.
then you're really just kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
So the one song that I'm concerned about was just because I happened to be there when Manny Fresh and you did it. I don't want to say the name of the song, but it had a gospel feel to it with
Yeah,
a
it still
new
does.
is it now? Did you go with trap or clap as
We're still trap hands. We're still trap
and that's
hands.
going to be on now?
Yeah.
Is that going to be a single?
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna
Because
tell
because
listeners
people-
right now.
because of the people that are on the song. Probably
It's such a brilliant song, man. I mean, I'm not sucking his ass, motherfuckers.
Thank God.
It is because it's new and it's old at the same time, right? Like I'm not into trap music at all. You know, I like fucking Third Coast Houston rap, but it's a fucking great song.
Well, and then like we are UGK and our sound is the precursor to modern trap music. I'm basically the co-writer of one of the earliest trap songs in terms of what trap is now, which is
Right.
Rap or Die, with me and Young Jeezy. So I have a frame of reference for that, and there's people that know me for that, but I can't present it in the way that, say, a Young Thug or a Rich the Kid or
Right.
Migos approach it. I still have to stay in my zone. You know what I'm saying? This is all part of musical politics, too, cultural as well. Just a matter of staying in your zone and doing what you do. My job is not to try to gain new fans in this day and age, because in order to do that, I would have to present myself, my music, and my movement in a different way, which would be off-putting to the people that have been supporting me for the
Okay.
past 26 years. So my job is to really make sure that the music I make speaks directly to my core. And if there's room for other people to get something out of it, then so be it. We don't want to make music that automatically repels young people. We need to do songs that if they were able to hear it, it'd be like, oh, yeah, that I can get with that. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's not going to be their favorite song to play.
Right.
Because I have new music that they play that I like, but it wouldn't necessarily be my first choice.
Right.
But I like what young people are doing.
Speaking of new music, Pusha T and Drake.
Right.
Do you think that's good for the African American community or the hip hop community, or you think the rap battles, especially in this one that's gotten so personal, talking about babies and fiancés?
It's been there. It's been there.
Oh,
I mean,
Biggie,
since,
Tupac talking about fucking Biggie's wife. I mean, it's not new.
You go beyond that. You go back to Ice-T and LL Cool J.
Right.
Where LL talking about fucking Ice-T's wife.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he said, I took your album cover, or even like when he said, I took your album cover straight to, I didn't listen to your album. I took the album cover straight to the bathroom. Like I didn't even listen to your album. I just bought it to look at your wife, kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? So those things.
But do you think that's good? I mean, do you think?
No, it is what it is. Braggadocio is one of the building blocks of rapping, not necessarily of hip hop, but within rap. I mean, the earliest days of rap were about basically how good you are at what you do and how better you are at that than other people.
Right.
Now, yeah, it can get, when you run out of regular things to compete about, like my flow is better than yours, my beats are better than yours, my writing is better than yours, then it tends to get more personal. You know what I'm saying? My car is nicer than yours. My woman is prettier than yours. You know what I'm saying? And she's classier and that kind of a thing. I mean, there is this argument that, black people don't look good when they tear each other down in these situations, but no one
But I
looks
think
good.
that's a racist argument. See, I mean, that's
'cause-
my. I think we need to stop predicating everything on race. And if two people want to fucking tear each other down, it shouldn't matter what race they are, because they're two individuals tearing themselves down or telling each other down. I don't think it reflects.
But there is a lack of unity that we see in the community sometimes. These things, they look like music and it look like it's just two dudes getting along, but it's really two trains of thought.
Right.
Right. So it's not just about what Drake is and what Pusha T is and how they differentiate from each other. It's about the group of people and the collective that identify with Drake.
Okay.
And then the collective that identify with Pusha T. Their morals, their standards, the way they carry themselves is reflective through these people. Right? So Pusha T is famous to a certain group of people because of who he is, how he carries himself, and what he represents.
Right.
Drake is the same way.
Far more famous.
Right, but that's because what he does is less offensive
Okay.
to more people than what Pusha does and what Pusha speaks about.
Whitney's bathroom on the cover, the drug scene on the cover of his album.
That's a lot right? I mean, it's a public photo, and it's not like you have a picture of Whitney Houston
Right.
like dead in the bathtub or
Right.
anything
But
like
it
that.
still conjures. I mean, I don't like looking at it. Right.
It doesn't it doesn't bother me, but that's because I'm not, for one, I'm not kin to Whitney Houston. I'm sure her blood relatives
Were
feel
you?
bad
Have you
about
ever
that,
met
even
her?
with Bobby Brown. No, but she wasn't a. From what I saw, she wasn't a very pleasant person to be around in her later years.
I heard she was. Well, there's a lot of drugs, but I mean, were you a fan?
Of The Voice, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See,
You
I was
can't
a huge
deny
fan.
that.
I
And
was a
that,
huge fan.
what we live in a time now where people argue: do we separate the artist from the human? You know, because some of our favorite artists have made very questionable choices. Some of them are wife beaters. Some of them were fucking 14 and 15-year-old women. And I'm not just talking about R. Kelly. I'm talking about Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley and guys like that who were fucking underage women. And so, and we make concessions for, like, Marvin Gaye is considered a musical legend,
He's a genius.
right? But at the same time, Sexual Healing was written about a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. Well, in Texas, in a lot of states, 17 is legal. But yeah.
And yeah. Tell me that when a grown man
Oh no, I'd kill him.
comes and knocks on
Yeah,
your
no,
door to
no,
pick
no,
up Maddie.
I'm with you. But okay, if speaking of young children in that illegality, Roman Polanski rapes a 13-year-old. Him and Robert De Niro, lifelong friends.
Yes.
Robert De Niro has been in the press a lot of late, attacking our president. Who do you think? I mean, how can you justify? Apparently, he met with Robert De Niro right after the incident. Like, he went from Nicholson's house to meet with De Niro,
Right.
or vice versa. What's worse, a pedophile or our president?
Well, I mean, a pedophile is going to be worse than pretty much everyone else on the
Right,
planet.
I agree. I
what I'm
fucking
saying?
completely agree. I think if you give safe haven to a pedophile, you're ratifying the conduct.
Right. But I don't know if Roman Polanski is just. I mean, it's a dated situation. Everyone
Right.
doesn't have a frame of reference on that. The average voter in America probably wouldn't even know who Roman Polanski is.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's going to be, we love our movies, we love our films. We very seldom know the people that make these films,
Okay.
write these films. That being said, Woody Allen, I mean,
But something interesting, one of the other adopted children has come out just recently, about 2 weeks ago, and wrote an op-ed. He's a very private person. He's like I don't think he's a psychologist. I think he's a therapist. One of Mia's children.
Right.
And said, this is all bullshit, and gave a very detailed op-ed into how these allegations could have never happened. Like, this attic that she claims exists did not exist. No one played in it. You basically said, this has all been driven by a very ugly bitterness from my mom, who is very mean and very controlling.
but that doesn't take away.
But it doesn't take away the Sun Yi shit.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't take
Right.
away any of that, right? Because there were the whole reason that she even found out that this was happening was because there were pictures, right?
Right. With her and with Sun Yi, but
Yeah.
with the other child, and Sun Yi was an adult, in all fairness, but it's still your fucking stepdaughter, right?
I'm a stepfather.
Right. I mean, could you imagine? You fucking
Because
kill somebody.
I love my stepdaughter as if that was my child.
Right.
Even though I know
you raised her, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun, but yeah, I think that's a weird.
I have nieces, I have
Right.
cousins, I have a lot of young people around me in my life, and you don't even, for one,
right.
it's family, so you shouldn't be looking at family like that
That's
anyway.
straight.
Even though there's obviously a lot of different things about kissing cousins and stuff like
But
that.
this whole, I think Hollywood and New York, I think you got just weird dynamics going on there. Like,
Well,
you
I
hear about
think-
all these
I think
pedophile rings.
in entertainment, right? A lot of it comes from a lot of people that get into entertainment want to be different than what they are.
Right.
That's a big part of people when they get into entertainment is how they're received and perceived by people. But then I think there's a lot of stunted growth in there, which I don't excuse, but it's very real.
But do you like Corey Feldman, Corey Haim? Do you think Feldman's telling the truth about getting raped by all these people? I tend to think he is.
I think so.
there's a horrible pedophile ring out there.
I think that this was a young kid who came from a family that didn't necessarily, that kind of turned him loose
Right.
into this environment. And when you do that, there are going to be people that are going to prey on that.
Right.
People are going to move on people and take advantage of people. It doesn't matter the age. It matters on the repercussions.
Right.
Right. And if they feel they can handle a person, a human being, a certain way with no one really caring about it or giving a damn, right? Because they're not, these teen actors, they go off on movie sets for months.
Right.
They're unaccompanied, and they're basically, the parent just has to assume that the adults on set are going to look after the child
See, I don't
actors.
know if as a parent, how you could ever assume that someone's going to put your child's best interest at heart when they're not their child.
Oh, I mean, if there's enough money involved, you'd be surprised what parents will throw to the wayside, and it only becomes a problem when something happens. Right? It's not necessarily always a problem because there's so many instances where children leave and do these things and there's no problem.
Yeah, but
right? It's
or
not,
you don't hear about the problem.
right.
But I don't
later.
even think it's about movies. My favorite actor right now is probably Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Okay.
And you read the story about Joaquin being 13 years old outside the Viper Room with River when River OD'd and died. The fuck is a 13-year-old doing at the Viper Room?
What was Drew Barrymore doing at different
Oh,
places?
yeah, no, it's fucking good. See, I just think Hollywood has a different... They moralize to us a lot. I know I'm speaking holistically about the collective that in Hollywood. There's a lot of moralizing to America, as we saw Andrew Garfield last night and Robert De Niro both lecture us a bit from the pulpit. But I don't think there's a whole lot of morality going on in Hollywood. You know, like you were, UGK raps about immoral stuff, but you've got a wife and 2 kids that you raised in a very moral household, right?
Right.
Right. Really. Whereas I think in a lot of times in Hollywood, it's the portrait of morality that they wear, and the underbelly is bullshit, is unseen.
Well, no, and I think very few people are actually showing the true dynamic that exists in their homes, right? I think some people that look crazy on the outside probably have very normal, sustained lifestyles, and I think the other is polar opposite. People that look clean cut and golden are probably hiding in certain cases the deepest, darkest shit.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we don't even know who's happy right nowadays, right?
Are any of us happy?
We have no idea if people are like genuinely happy with their lives because we look at people's lives and we envy them. I mean, who would have thought Anthony Bourdain would feel so alone?
Well, they said that he's been suicidal since his first divorce.
Right.
I only met him once, and it was South by Southwest years ago. The kids were small, and it was Cage the Elephant, incredible show. If you never seen it, it was
Cage
fucking
the Elephant's
nuts.
amazing.
But him and I were the tallest 2 guys in the room, so you notice fucking Anthony Bourdain, and I'm gonna go talk to him. He's very exuberant, right? He seemed very high, though, and that's the question: was all his positivity masked by narcotics? You just don't know. He was a genius who.
Well, weed doesn't just necessarily. Weed is just
no. He didn't seem weed high. He's seen
like coke high,
coke high, speed,
and
high.
he has had drug problems all his life.
Right.
He's been. He comes from that CBGB's lifestyle kind of crowd.
Well, I think it's the kitchen lifestyle. If you read Kitchen Confidential, apparently the New York culinary scene is just filled. It's all cocaine.
But he's also comes from the punk aesthetic too, right?
Yeah.
He's also a Big Stooges guy, and
Right.
Iggy Pop is his idol. So obviously you're going to make questionable choices if
Right.
Iggy Pop is who you look up to, who now has, outside of all that craziness, a very even-keeled, laid-back lifestyle. Lives in Miami now.
Yeah, I was much more shocked by Kate Spade because this is the Kate Spade, the smiling face,
Right,
this
but
homogenous.
again, that's why I keep saying, do we even know if people are even genuinely happy?
Apparently it came out that her husband had asked for a divorce the day before. How do you live with that? I mean, you can't blame yourself, but you do, right?
Right.
I mean, they had like a 12 or 13-year-old.
Well, I don't even think it's about if he blames himself. I think for him, his biggest issue is going to be does the child blame him because the mother wrote in a note, this isn't about you, ask your dad, right? Kind of a thing.
I guess you just don't know. Are you happy, Bud?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, good.
I've been happier, and I'm not going to say I don't get low moments in my life, but I try not to sit around and feel sorry for myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got a great life. And you can sit and be stuck on one thing in a very multifaceted, very complex life. You can concentrate on, think about it. If 100 people walk in here and say, hey, Bun, I love you. Thank you. Hey, Bun, I love you. Thank you. And then the 101st person walks in and says, man, I hate you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go home and my human nature is not going to just have me go home and concentrate on the 100 people that love me.
Right.
It's going to be stuck on why does this one person hate me? And you're going to be trying to dig into yourself. What is it about me that I did wrong in front of this person? What are my character traits that this person doesn't like? What is it about me as a person that this person doesn't like? And if this person feels that way, how many other people feel that way and maybe just aren't telling me? You get to asking a bunch of different kind of questions to yourself that you wouldn't normally ask. And then you get stuck in that moment. Because, it happens on social media all the time. People people will get on your page and say, "Hey, man, I love you. You know, say I love your
Right.
music, all of that. R.I.P. Pimp C," and that's cool. And then it'll be that one comment was like, "Man, I don't know, man. That shit's kind of weak what you did." And then you want to go at that person. You want to ask that person, "Well, what's this about?" Or
Right.
you go, "I'm like, well, fuck you too," or that kind of thing. And you get stuck in that moment. And then you're like, "Man, I wish I could find this person and run up on this person and all of that." And you get caught up in what people
That's your
don't
lawyer.
like
Please
about
don't
you.
run up on nobody. Let them hit you first, or at least make sure there's no
Well,
cameras.
that's the big misconception about the Trill Gladiators. People think that the Trill Gladiators are there to protect people from me. They're actually there to protect.
No. I've actually seen you hit somebody.
Yeah, so I mean, they're
Now the guy hit me first, and you was just sticking up for me. Don't get a misconception, y'all.
I'm not just.
I
Running
mean,
up on
he wasn't
people.
just running up on people, but I did drag him away into a bar real quick so we could disappear.
That
But
was
statute of limitations run on that situation, y'all.
Is it? Is it done?
No, but I'm just trying to put that shit out there. You know what I'm saying?
But as usual, these conversations divert from politics into normal life. It's just we have a great dialogue with each other, and we know a lot about each other, and so it's not all politics, but politics is the basis on which we decided to start this podcast. But it isn't the basis of our relationship, and that's why every now and then these things tend to veer off subject because. You know, sometimes we haven't seen each other in between the podcasts or in a couple of weeks, and we haven't discussed certain things. And you know, there's certain things you always talk about with people. You know, there's a good quote. The author is Joan Didion, and Joan Didion wrote a book about her husband passing away, and she says that the biggest thing that she misses most about her husband is the little things that they would have in common that they would talk about. Right. So you know, that's what I tell people all the time. They ask me all the time, you know, what do you miss most about Pimp C? I just say, you know, I miss his reaction to things that were happening, like new cars. I would love to know what kind of car Pimp would want to drive nowadays.
Botega.
You know, maybe.
I think the Rolls SUV's too much. I think the Botega hits right there, but that's just me.
I think he would have bought the Botega for his mom or his wife.
Okay.
I think Pimp would have wanted the Mulsanne himself, something like that.
I mean, he did leave a wrecked Rolls on
He
the
was,
side of the road.
yeah. No, he's always been a spaceship car kind of guy.
Yeah.
I've always been just a truck SUV kind of guy.
Yeah. So when we actually get these tickets to go, are we really going to do an Escalade in
I think we have
Japan?
to do the Escalade in Japan.
That would just,
I think
fucking be you rolling up in Tokyo on a fucking Escalade. Come on.
it doesn't get any better than that because I've done full rallies across Europe in the Escalade, and people are always dumbfounded, not in the way that they are when they see the Ferrari though.
Right.
It's very different, and then it's always like me and a bunch of dudes of color hopping out.
Right.
So it's
I mean, I'll water that down experience a little bit. I'm sorry, but
you're a person of color too.
Oh, come on.
You're a person of color, just not how society. Just not how society defines it.
Is
white's a color?
Is your wonderful, brilliant East LA, speaking of East LA, Hispanics, photographer friend Esteban, is he going to do the rally this year?
He is, and Muggs is coming back too. So both of the two of the original three members of that party with me on Team Trail are coming back. The problem is that they're coming back with their
a brand,
own team.
right?
Yeah, like Esteban's working with a particular brand. He's been shooting pictures and video for them, so he's coming as part of that collective.
Okay.
DJ Muggs has been expanding his production career. He's actually done an album with this guy Mayhem Lauren, who's part of the original like Polo guys in New York. He's really, really good lyricist. He's also featured on you see Mayhem on Fuck That's Delicious with Action Bronson.
Okay.
So he's the big black dude that's usually with Action Bronson on his cooking show and food show. And so I'm pretty sure that's going to be the collective of people that he goes with because they've been kind of they did an album together. They've been touring a lot together. And I feel like if he comes back, it's going to be with that collective. I would rather that collective over the other group that he rolls with, which is Die Antwoord.
Yeah.
So he produced
unusual people.
Very, very different people. And this is a very strange place for him with them.
Right.
Because actually I was supposed to be on the newest Die Antwoord project.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but
wow.
They had, right after he asked me to do something with them, the guy in the group was calling Drake like a pussy and stuff like that. Like he went on this big rant about Drake, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to stand next to you.
Yeah, obviously not.
I don't, it's
that's
like, I don't.
Guy.
Yeah, that's my dude. You know what I'm saying? So I got to ride with, I tend to leave with who I came with.
Right.
Right or wrong.
I'm the same way.
I tend to leave with who I came with.
Loyalty is the only thing.
I think we have some words coming from our producer over there.
I think we are. I think we're
Say again?
next podcast here. It's time to wrap it up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
No,
it
no,
is. Oh, it's 6 o'clock. That's what it is.
Okay.
See, it's 6. No, that's not wrap it up. You just got to swing your arm, man. Shout out to our executive producer, Mrs. Freeman, my wonderful wife.
Always.
Shout out to our line producer, provider of facilities, Q Guyton, owner and operator of the Media Block. Thank you, Charles, as always, for coming in and losing track of the conversation as we tend to do. I don't think many people realize this is really a reflection of the conversations that we tend to have off camera.
Right.
Which is why it always tends to get into shit that's not politics and not rap, because we talk about more things. Because you obviously are more than just a lawyer, former judge, former police officer. And I'm obviously more than just, a rapper.
Rice University professor, father, ambassador to Houston to the world.
I have a couple of
gumball spokesman.
Couple of hats I wear, but it's always good talking to you, man.
Yes, sir.
We got to learn how to do this more. Q, we got to get us a more scheduled time up for this kind of thing. Well, we're lucky though, because you're not in trial right now either.
I was supposed to be in an aggravated assault trial. Got my guy misdemeanor. Rule of thumb: do not get out in a Walmart parking lot and hit somebody in the head with a baseball bat, because there are fucking cameras out there. People, don't do that shit.
So is there somewhere we should?
No, I can't recommend to you how to commit crimes. I can just recommend how not to commit them. Yeah, I mean, if you got to hit somebody, just not a baseball bat. I mean, but if you do, and you're looking at 20 years, hire me, and I'll get you a misdemeanor like I did this cat.
Thanks again, Charles.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another slightly disjointed political conversation here on Trillitics, but this is where Trill meets politics. So some of it's going to be politics, and some of it's just going to be some Trill shit me and Charles are talking about. Well, we love you guys for tuning in either way. We hope we answered some questions and gave you some insight on things political and things Trill. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir.